Hey, this is Ebube Olivia Akueme, and I'm coming to you live from Kent in the UK. How are you today? I hope you're well and good and having an absolutely fantastic Wednesday. I am. Today is another Wednesday. Yes, it's another time to, get together. And today I want to talk about having peace, having that sense of stability. That's what we're talking about today. So today is all about peace. So if you're just tuning in today, you're so welcome. I'm hoping that wherever you are, you're rocking and rolling and, just forging ahead with things in a very peaceful fashion. Having a peaceful life obviously has many, many, many benefits. Moving away from unnecessary stress, things that kind of like cause your health or any aspect of your life, whether it's in your career, your relationships, your finances, your spirituality, or your work or your career, anything that, or your health, anything that causes you some type of unnecessary agitation. So I'm not saying that life hasn't got its ups and downs. It has. Obviously, we all live in this life, and there's always ups and there are always downs. Definitely, there's always that pull and push from time to time. However, the kind of peace or not having peace I'm talking about is the ones that are somehow caused by the way you do things, or maybe your sort of like, let's just call it your modus operandi, how you kind of like operate generally in life. Because sometimes when we find ourselves in places where are very unstable, having no peace and all of that, we need to sometimes look inwards and look into, what language, what words are we using, what actions are we taking, and what is causing this kind of results that I'm getting. So that's the aspect I'm looking at today, because there's certain things that will happen and happen to you that obviously you can't control, is definitely out of your control or out of your hands. But I'm talking about, to a very large extent, the ones that you can control. So today is all about peace. It's all about having peace, and we all need peace to a degree. The peace I'm talking about is the stability that you need in the 5 areas of life, whether we're talking about your health, your relationships, your career or work, your spirituality, or in your finances. So number one has to do with, so the question is, if you're just tuning in today, is how do you create peace in your life? How do you create that stability I'm talking about, that level of tranquility that, I'm referring to? Number one is ensuring that your lifestyle, the way you think and the way you do things, brings about peace. So in other words, the number one way of ensuring that, to a very large extent, you're having some level of peace in your life is making sure that you're on that path in terms of your lifestyle. So your lifestyle would be, let's put it this way. You cannot talk about neglecting, for instance, your health and then want peace in your health. Because if you're eating anyhow, you don't exercise, you don't sleep well, a combination of all those things will throw your health into some kind of situation that you don't like, and that brings some level of instability. So it can lead you down a path of, a path you don't want, or maybe you drink too much, or you smoke too much, or whatever it might be. You know what I'm talking about. Again, when it comes to relationships, how do you approach people? How do you handle people? Are you caring? Your mindset and the way you do things and all of that. All of those things will move you in the direction of peace or move you away from peace. It's the same thing in your finances. How do you handle your money? Are you someone who spends? Are you somebody who maybe you're lacking some level of financial education? So when you have money, all you think about is the next item that you want. There's no budgeting, there's no planning, there's no saving, there's no investment, those sort of things. Your finances obviously will not be a peaceful one. It will be one that would cause you stress. You see, so the sort of peace I'm talking about, as you can see, are things that are within your control. The ones that you can do that can create that level of stability in your life. So there are a number of things that we all can do in every single area of our lives, in our health. There are things that we can do that, will bring that stability, being stable in your health. There are things that you would do. So that's the kind of peace I'm talking about in your relationships as well, in your finances as well, in your spirituality. So let's talk about spirituality. You can't, as a lifestyle, neglect your spirituality. Like, maybe if you're meant to be praying or meditating, maybe reading good materials and all of that, spiritual materials, you don't do any of those things. And then you wonder why there's that, level of instability in your life. So today is all about trying to put in some habits that will help you in the long run. So point number one is all about a lifestyle, having the mindset and the approach to life of understanding that if you neglect your health, if you neglect your relationships, and that's the key word, neglect. If you neglect all of those areas, your health, your relationships, your finances, your spirituality, your work or your career, you would run into a state of unrest. And that unrest is what brings that instability, and that's what threatens the peace in any one of those areas. So you get the point. Point number two of how to have peace in any one area of your life, or just generally, is ensuring that just making sure that you disengage from stir-ups and gossips, things like that. There's certain things that sincerely don't really concern you. It's none of your business. For instance, especially maybe in the workplace, if you're somebody who has, maybe you go into work, or just generally maybe in the neighborhood, in your community, wherever, you're always engaged in other people's affairs, things that don't concern you, things that has nothing to do with your goals, has nothing to do with where you are heading to in life. Obviously, if you engage in it, I'm not saying that you cannot hear of something. All of us, sometimes you're on your own and you hear gossips, you hear things that, you didn't go out to look for them. They came, you just heard them somehow. Fine. I'm going to talk about how to kill gossip. That's another conversation altogether. But I'm saying, if you're somebody who perpetuates it, you're always, you kind of like trade in gossip. You trade in, things that are none of your business. Sometimes they call them being nosy. You're into other people's affairs, into things that are none of your business, and you don't even stop there. You also have a way of kind of spreading these things. You have a way of handling them that is not healthy. It's not healthy, one, to yourself, and it's not healthy either to the other person or the people involved. So if you have that kind of lifestyle, this is a time to tell yourself to disengage from stir-ups, disengage from gossips, disengage from things that are not profitable in the end to yourself, to your end goal, to your accomplishments, your dreams, and all of that. It has no bearing whatsoever. For instance, the lady down the road, or the man down the road, or the family down the road, they did this or they said that. It has nothing to do with nothing. You understand those kind of talks. Sometimes it's just, or maybe the ones you see online, like some celebrity gossips and celebrity news and all of that. Why perpetuate them? Why take them on? Why engage in them? Some people engage in them, it takes up a lot of their resources, like their time, their energy. And you find that all of those things, at the end of the day, sometimes even arguments on things that you don't even know the foundation or the facts behind some of the stories that you see. It's not everything you see that you want to believe, because a lot of times, a lot of people don't understand the story behind the story. So my number 2 point is that if you're trying to build a peaceful lifestyle, if you want a peaceful lifestyle, then apparently it's important that you disengage from stir-ups, you disengage from gossips, you disengage from things like that. Now my number 3 point is that it's important you learn how to work on your countenance. So if you're somebody who is peaceful, people around you would know, because it will come from things like your demeanor, your countenance. If you see somebody who is wearing a frown, like all the time, they are frowning all the time, you cannot tell me that they are peaceful. You already can see that within them they haven't got peace within them. There's something not quite. So a smile is always better. A smile is friendlier. A smile is more endearing, and it's more welcoming. So you can see that if somebody definitely hasn't got peace, it tells on their face. It tells, they just their countenance and just their body language sometimes. And that's why this is an area that it's important to pay attention to. Pay attention to your body language. Pay attention to how you come across, especially how you look in terms of, are you wearing a frown? Are you looking angry? Is there something that is upsetting you, maybe, or irritating you for such a long time that you constantly wear this look, you constantly have this demeanor, you constantly give off this vibe that is, don't approach me, that's not a peaceful place. So a peaceful person and a peaceful place would always show. And I hope this makes a lot of sense to you, that peace, the reward of peace is peace. That's the good thing about peace. I wrote this on one of my Facebook posts, I think last week or earlier on. Yes, maybe sometimes last week or something like that. The reward of peace is peace. But most importantly, peace is also a sign that you're heading on the right path. It's a real good sign that you're heading in the right path. And it's not this false peace. It's not trying to just, everything is fine, and underneath things are not fine. That's not the kind of peace I'm talking about. I'm talking about looking inward and seeing that in your health you have calmness, in your finances same, in your spirituality same, in your relationships, and of course in your work and your career. Things are going well. That's basically what it is. And most importantly, you are minding your business. And you see, when you mind your business, you have peace, because when you mind your business, you're minding those things, those 5 areas that truly affect you and truly concern you. Until next Wednesday, my friends, stay well and be well. Now, I'm going to be jumping onto my Instagram at 6:30. I have a very special guest. She is Pastor Mrs. Della Boachi. And today she's going to be talking to us about discovering your purpose. This is a huge, huge topic. She's also written a book about it. So I'm inviting you from here onto my Instagram. It's at Ebubski. So Ebubski is Echo Bravo Umbrella Bravo Sierra Kilo India. EBUBSKI. It's 6:30. So look at the time, 6:30 UK time. That's in the next about 15 minutes. We shall be on Instagram talking about purpose, and I hope you can join us there. Until next time, and until 6:30 this evening, stay well, be well, and my dear friends, remember your lifestyle. It's important that you keep the peace, disengage from gossips and stir-ups, and number 3, ensure you're working on yourself and your countenance. Okay? Take care. Bye, my friends.